The metal corridor hummed with power as Hyunwoo walked through the warship. His boots clicked against the floor, a sound that always reminded him he was far from home. Earth felt like a distant memory now, 3 months after the Vryn Empire had defeated humanity and taken prisoners. He was one of the lucky ones, they said. Lucky to be alive. Lucky to work as an engineer instead of dying in the war. He didn't feel lucky. The Vryn warship called Times Talon of Dominion Times was massive, built for conquest and death. Its corridors were too tall for humans, designed for the reptilian Vryn, who stood nearly 8 feet high. Everything here was hard and cold, just like the creatures who built it. Hyunwoo had learned to keep his head down and do his work. That was how humans survived among the Vryn. Today was inspection day. Hyunwoo tried to avoid these days. General Krell, the warship's commander, conducted monthly inspections of the war cubs. These were young Vryn being raised to become soldiers. The Empire believed in starting military training early, and they believed in something else too. They believed in culling the weak. Hyunwoo reached his engineering station and began checking the power systems. He could hear noise from the training hall nearby. The inspection had started. He told himself not to look, not to care. It wasn't his business what the Vryn did with their own children, but he looked anyway. Through the transparent wall that separated the corridor from the training hall, Hyunwoo could see dozens of young Vryn lined up. They were cubs, maybe 5 or 6 years old by human standards, though they already stood 4 feet tall. Their scales gleamed under the harsh lights, colors ranging from deep green to dark blue. They stood at attention, perfectly still, as General Krell walked down the line. Krell was terrifying even by Vryn standards. His scales were scarred from countless battles, and his eyes were the color of dried blood. He wore armor decorated with the bones of enemies he had killed. When he moved, every creature on the ship felt fear. That was his power. The general stopped at each cub, testing them. He would bark a command, and the cub would perform a combat move. Strike, block, dodge. If the cub performed well, Krell moved on. If the cub was slow or weak, Krell would mark them. 3 marks meant death. That was the Vryn way. Remove weakness. Make the species stronger. Hyunwoo watched as Krell reached a small cub near the end of the line. This one was different. His scales were paler than the others, almost gray instead of the healthy green of Vryn youth. He was smaller too, his frame thin and fragile-looking. The cub trembled as Krell approached. Combat stance, Krell commanded. The small cub raised his claws, but his arms shook. The other cubs remained perfectly still, but Hyunwoo could sense their judgment. They had already decided this one was weak. Strike the target. Krell pointed to a training dummy. The cub lunged forward, but his movement was slow and clumsy. His claws barely scratched the dummy's surface. In a real fight, he would have died in seconds. Krell's eyes narrowed. Again, the cub tried once more. This time he stumbled and fell, his weak legs unable to support the jumping attack. He scrambled to get up, terror in his eyes. He knew what was coming. Krell made a mark on his datapad. Then another. Then a third. Tae-young, Krell said the cub's name like a curse. Son of warrior Thrawn, who died with honor in battle. Your father was strong. You are not. You are genetically deficient. You weaken the bloodline. The small cub named Tae-young looked up at the general. His eyes were wide and filled with tears he was trying not to shed. Vryn were not supposed to cry. That was another weakness. By the authority of the Vryn Empire, I declare you unfit for service. You will be removed from the breeding population. Krell turned to 2 guards. Take it to the airlock. Execute the culling protocol. The words were so casual, like ordering someone to clean a floor. Hyunwoo felt his stomach twist. He had heard about the culling, but he had never seen it happen. They were going to throw a child out into space. They were going to kill him for being small and weak. The guards grabbed Tae-young by the arms. The cub didn't fight. He had been trained from birth to obey. His small legs dragged as they pulled him toward the corridor where Hyun-woo stood. Every logical part of Hyun-woo's brain told him to stay quiet. This wasn't his problem. Interfering with Vryn business could get him killed. Earth had lost the war. Humans had no power here. He was just an engineer, insignificant and weak like all humans in Vryn eyes. But then Tae-young passed by him, and their eyes met. The cub looked at him with such desperate hope, such pure terror, that something inside Hyun-woo broke. He thought about his own nephew back on Earth. About the same age as this cub. He thought about what his sister would do if someone tried to kill her son for being different. Hyun-woo moved before he could stop himself. He stepped directly into the guard's path, blocking the corridor. The Vryn guards stopped. Surprised. No one ever interfered with a culling. Especially not a human. "Move, human." One guard growled. His hand moved to his weapon. "No," Hyun-woo said. His voice shook, but he stood firm. The commotion drew attention. General Krell turned from the training hall and walked toward them. His footsteps were heavy, threatening. Other Vryn crew members gathered to watch. Humans didn't challenge Vryn. This was either very brave or very stupid. "Human engineer," Krell said slowly. "You are blocking a military order. Give me one reason why I should not kill you where you stand." Hyun-woo's heart pounded so hard he thought it might explode. But he had started this. He had to finish it. He forced himself to look up at the massive general. "The right of claim," Hyun-woo said. "I invoke the right of claim." Silence fell over the corridor. Even Krell looked surprised. The right of claim was an ancient Vryn law, rarely used. It stated that a warrior who defeated an enemy could claim that enemy's possessions as spoils of war. "You dare invoke warrior rights?" Krell's voice was dangerous. "You are no warrior." 2. Last month, the human resistance destroyed a Vryn patrol ship near Titan, Hyun-woo said quickly. He had studied Vryn law during his imprisonment, looking for anything that might help humans survive. "That makes us enemies, who have achieved victory in battle. Under your own law, I have the right to claim spoils from defeated Vryn." Krell's eyes narrowed. He was considering it. The Vryn valued their laws and traditions, even the inconvenient ones. "This cub is not spoils of war," Krell said. "His father died in battle. That makes him inheritance from a fallen warrior, property of the Empire. And property can be claimed." Hyun-woo was making up the logic as he went, stretching the law as far as it would go. For a long moment, Krell just stared at him. The entire corridor held its breath. Then, incredibly, the general laughed. It was a harsh, cruel sound. "You want to claim this defective creature? Very well, human. He is yours." Krell leaned down until his face was inches from Hyun-woo's. "But know this. When he fails, when he proves too weak to survive, I will enjoy watching your grief. You humans are so soft. You try to save everything. It will be your downfall." Krell gestured, and the guards released Tae-young. The small cub stumbled and fell to his knees. He looked up at Hyun-woo with confusion and wonder. "Take your prize, human," Krell said with contempt. "Let us see how long it lives under your care." The general turned and walked away, his guards following. The crowd dispersed, though many Vryn cast disgusted looks at both Hyun-woo and Tae-young. To them, both were weak. Both were failures. Hyun-woo knelt down beside Tae-young. This close, he could see how truly small the cub was. His scales were dull and brittle-looking. His breathing was labored. The cub had been marked for death because his body was different, slower, weaker than what the Vryn expected. "Can you stand?" Hyun-woo asked gently. Tae-young nodded slowly. He got to his feet, his legs still shaking. He looked at Hyun-woo, with wide eyes that held 1,000 questions. "Come on," Hyun-woo said. "Let's get you somewhere safe." He led the cub down the corridor toward his quarters. With each step, The reality of what he had done sank in. He had just claimed responsibility for a dying alien child. He had made himself a target of Vrin cruelty. He had probably doomed them both. But when he looked down at Tae-young walking beside him, still trembling but alive, Hyun-woo knew he would make the same choice again. Everyone deserved a chance. Even here, among the stars, far from home. Even when hope seemed impossible. That was what made him human. Hyun-woo's quarters were small, barely large enough for one person. Now there were two. Tae-young sat on the floor in the corner, his gray scales reflecting the dim light. The cub had not spoken since they arrived. He just stared at Hyun-woo with those large, confused eyes. "Are you hungry?" Hyun-woo asked. Tae-young flinched at the question, then nodded slowly. Hyun-woo pulled out his emergency rations and some water. The Vrin had given him basic supplies, though never enough. He broke the protein bar in half and offered it to the cub. Tae-young took it carefully, as if expecting it to be taken away. He ate slowly, methodically, like someone who had learned not to waste food. Hyun-woo watched him and felt anger rise in his chest. This child had been starved, neglected, and then sentenced to death. All because he was born different. A knock on the door made them both jump. Hyun-woo opened it to find Ji-hae standing there. She was the only other human he spoke to regularly, a medical officer who had been captured from the same battle group. Her face showed concern. "I heard what you did," she said quietly, stepping inside. Her eyes found Tae-young immediately. "Oh, Hyun-woo. What were you thinking?" "I don't know," he admitted. "I just couldn't watch them kill him." Ji-hae knelt beside Tae-young, her medical training taking over. She pulled out a small scanner from her pocket and ran it over the cub. Her frown deepened as she read the results. His bone density is low. Muscle development is severely delayed. His scales are brittle from malnutrition. She looked up at Hyun-woo. He has a genetic condition. It affects his growth and strength. The Vrin would see this as a defect, but it's just a variation. With proper care and supplements, he could live a normal life. "Can you help him?" Hyun-woo asked. "I can synthesize some supplements from the medical bay. It will help strengthen his bones and muscles. But Hyun-woo, you need to understand something." Ji-hae's voice was serious. "He will never be as strong as other Vrin. Not physically. If you're trying to turn him into a warrior like them, it won't work." "I don't want to turn him into anything," Hyun-woo said. "I just want him to live." Ji-hae smiled sadly. "That's very human of you. I'll get the supplements. But be careful. The Vrin are watching you now. Both of you." After she left, Hyun-woo sat down across from Tae-young. The cub had finished eating and was looking around the small room with curiosity. His eyes stopped on Hyun-woo's work tablet, where engineering diagrams were displayed. "Do you know what that is?" Hyun-woo asked. Tae-young leaned forward, studying the screen. His claw reached out carefully and traced one of the lines. Then, he looked up at Hyun-woo and spoke for the first time. "Power flow," the cub said in a quiet voice. His words were heavily accented but clear. "Energy moves through here." He traced another line. "To here, makes ship move." Hyun-woo was surprised. "That's right. How did you know that?" "I watch," Tae-young said simply. "I see patterns. Other cubs train to fight. I watch ship. Watch machines. They make sense." Something clicked in Hyun-woo's mind. This cub couldn't fight like other Vrin, but his brain worked differently. He saw patterns, understood systems. While his body was weak, his mind was sharp. "Would you like to learn more?" Hyun-woo asked. For the first time, Tae-young smiled. It was a small, hesitant expression, but it transformed his face. "Yes," he said. Over the next weeks, a routine developed. Hyun-woo worked his engineering shifts, and Tae-young stayed in the quarters. Ji-hae brought supplements that slowly strengthened the cub's body. He was still small and weak by Vrin standards, but he could move better, breathe easier. During their free time, Hyunwoo taught Taeyong everything he could. Not combat or violence, but engineering, problem-solving, mathematics. The cub absorbed information like a sponge. He could look at a machine once and understand how it worked. He could solve equations that would challenge adult humans, but the Vrin did not forget about them. The other cubs, especially one named Karn, constantly mocked Taeyong. Karn was everything the Vrin valued. Large, strong, aggressive. He was General Krell's favorite, destined to become a great warrior. One day, Hyunwoo was working in the engineering bay when alarms blared, a coolant leak in one of the secondary systems. Not dangerous yet, but it needed to be fixed quickly. Hyunwoo rushed to the location and found a group of Vren cubs there, including Karn. They were supposed to be in training, but they had wandered into this section. "Move back," Hyunwoo ordered. "This area is dangerous." "The human speaks to us like we are weak," Karn said, his voice mocking. The other cubs laughed. "We are Vrin. We fear nothing." Then Hyunwoo saw Taeyong standing behind the group. The small cub must have been following him, learning by watching. Now, he was trapped with the other cubs. Karn saw Taeyong too. His eyes lit up with cruel pleasure. "Look, the defective one. Still alive. The human's pet. Leave him alone," Hyunwoo said firmly. "Or what?" Karn stepped toward Taeyong. "Will you save him again, human? Will you claim him twice?" The other cubs circled around Taeyong, pushing him back toward the leaking coolant pipe. The greenish fluid dripped from a crack, hissing when it hit the floor. It was corrosive and hot. If Taeyong got too close, it would burn through his already weak scales. "Fight back, weakling," Karn taunted. "Show us you deserve to live." Taeyong looked at the cubs surrounding him, then at the leaking pipe. His eyes moved over the pipes, the valves, the power conduits. Suddenly, Taeyong moved. Not to fight, but to the control panel on the wall. His claws moved quickly, entering commands that Hyunwoo had taught him. Before Karn could stop him, Taeyong rerouted the power flow. The lights in that section flickered and died. Emergency systems kicked in, creating a barrier of red warning lights around the leak. But Taeyong had done something else too. He had redirected energy to the floor plates around the cubs. When Karn stepped forward to grab Taeyong, his foot touched the charged plate. Electricity jolted through him, not enough to cause serious harm, but enough to make him yelp and jump back. The other cubs scrambled away from the electrified floor, suddenly afraid. Taeyong stood behind the barrier of charged plates and warning lights, safe from both the coolant leak and the bullies. He had used the ship's systems to protect himself without throwing a single punch. Hyunwoo felt pride swell in his chest. "Everyone out," he ordered. Now, the cubs fled, even Karn, who shot angry looks at both Hyunwoo and Taeyong. When they were gone, Hyunwoo helped Taeyong deactivate the floor plates and properly seal the coolant leak. They worked together, the human and the cub, fixing the problem efficiently. "That was smart thinking," Hyunwoo said. "I cannot fight like them," Taeyong said quietly, "so I must fight differently." "That's not weakness," Hyunwoo told him. "That's intelligence. That's adaptation. Those are strengths too." But news of the incident spread through the ship. The crew had mixed reactions. Some Vrin were disturbed that a cub had used technology instead of claws. It was not the Vrin way. Others were intrigued. The cub had defended himself and even protected the other cubs from the coolant leak, all without violence. Captain Vorin, General Krell's second in command, came to inspect the engineering bay. He was less brutal than Krell, but still a firm believer in Vrin's superiority. He looked at the repaired coolant pipe, then at Taeyong. "The defective cub did this?" he asked Hyunwoo. "He identified the problem and helped fix it." Hyunwoo confirmed. "He has an aptitude for engineering." Vorn studied Taeyong for a long moment. "Vrin, do not become engineers. We conquer. We fight. We rule. Someone has to build and maintain the ships you fight on. Hyunwoo pointed out carefully. Someone has to understand the systems that keep you alive in space. Vorn had no response to that. He left without another word, but Hyunwoo knew the report would reach General Krell. That evening, as Hyunwoo and Tae-young sat together in the quarters, the cub asked a question that had clearly been bothering him. Why did you save me? Hyunwoo thought about how to answer. How could he explain human compassion to someone raised in a society that valued only strength? Because everyone deserves a chance, he said finally. Where I come from, we believe that every life has value. Not just the strong ones. Not just the perfect ones. Everyone. Even defective ones? Tae-young asked quietly. You're not defective, Hyunwoo said firmly. You're different. And different can be powerful in its own way. You proved that today. You survived not by being stronger than Karn, but by being smarter. Tae-young was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then he said something that made Hyunwoo realize just how much the cub had been watching and learning. You are weak by Vrin standards, Tae-young said. Humans are small, fragile. You cannot fight us with claws or strength. But you are still here. Still alive. You survived by being smart, too. Yes, Hyunwoo agreed. Humans survive by adapting, by thinking, by working together. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. But we're stubborn and creative. Then I will be like human, Tae-young said with determination. I will survive by thinking, by adapting, by being stubborn. Hyunwoo laughed, the first real laugh he had managed since being captured. That's the spirit. But as he looked at the small cub, so determined and hopeful, Hyunwoo felt worry too. They had caught General Krell's attention now. The Vrin leader was watching them, waiting for them to fail. And in this harsh world of the Vrin Empire, failure often meant death. Still, Tae-young was alive. He was learning. He was growing stronger in his own way. That was something. That was hope. And sometimes, hope was the most powerful thing in the universe. The warship dropped out of hyperspace near a blue and green planet. Hyunwoo watched through the observation window as the world grew larger on the screens. It looked peaceful from space, but he knew what was coming. All hands to battle stations. The announcement echoed through the corridors. Rebellion. Suppression. Protocol. Initiated. Hyunwoo's stomach twisted. He had heard about these operations. The Vrin conquered worlds and forced them into the Empire. Sometimes the conquered people fought back. The Vrin called it rebellion. Hyunwoo called it the desperate struggle of people who wanted to be free. He was working at his engineering station when General Krell's voice boomed across the ship's communication system. All cubs report to the deployment bay. Today you prove your worth. In real combat. Hyunwoo's blood ran cold. Tae-young was in their quarters, studying technical manuals like he did every day. The cub was supposed to be training with the other cubs, but the instructors had stopped requiring his attendance. They considered him a lost cause, the humans' strange pet project. He ran to their quarters and found Tae-young already standing, his face pale. The cub had heard the announcement too. I have to go, Tae-young said quietly. It is an order. No, Hyunwoo said immediately. You're not ready. You can't fight like the other cubs. They'll kill you down there. If I do not go, General Krell will kill me here, Tae-young replied. He was right, and they both knew it. I must try. Hyunwoo grabbed his arm gently. Then listen to me. Don't try to fight like Karn or the other cubs. Use what I taught you. Think. Observe. Survive. That's all that matters. Come back alive. Tae-young nodded, then did something unexpected. He pressed his forehead against Hyunwoo's hand. A Vrin gesture that Hyunwoo had learned meant trust and affection. Then the cub left, walking toward the deployment bay with squared shoulders, trying to look brave. Hyunwoo wanted to follow, to protect him, but humans were not allowed in combat zones. He could only return to his station and wait, praying to any god who might listen that Tae-young would survive. The planet's surface was hot and humid. Tae-young stood with the other cubs in the deployment craft as it descended through the atmosphere. Around him, cubs like Karn were excited, eager for their first real kill. They had been raised for this moment. Tae-young felt only fear. Captain Vorn stood at the front of the craft, his armor gleaming. "Today you become true Vryn," he announced. "The colonists below have rejected the Empire's rule. They have set traps and organized resistance. Your task is simple. Eliminate all hostile forces. Show no mercy. Prove your strength." The craft landed with a heavy thud. The doors opened, and the cubs poured out into a dense jungle. Adult Vryn warriors were with them, guiding them toward the rebel positions. The plan was simple and brutal. Use the cubs as shock troops while the veterans provided support. They moved through the jungle in formation. Karn led the cub group, confident and strong. Tae-young stayed near the back, his eyes scanning everything around them. The jungle was thick with vegetation, full of places to hide, full of places for traps. Hyun-woo had taught him to observe, to look for patterns. Tae-young noticed disturbed ground where plants had been recently moved. He noticed branches positioned at odd angles. He noticed everything. "Stop!" Tae-young called out. "Silence. Defective," Karn snarled. "We do not take orders from weaklings." Karn stepped forward, and the ground exploded beneath him. The mine was not strong enough to kill a Vryn, but it sent Karn flying backward, his armor dented and his pride wounded. Other cubs jumped aside as more explosions rippled through the area. The rebels had mined the path. "Back!" one of the adult warriors ordered. "Reform behind the tree line." They retreated, but 3 cubs were injured, screaming in pain. Karn was cursing, his leg damaged. The confident assault had turned into chaos within minutes. Captain Vorn studied the jungle ahead with narrowed eyes. "The entire approach is trapped. We need to find another path." Tae-young stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir, I can see the pattern." Vorn looked down at him with surprise. "The mines, they are placed in a pattern. Here, here, and here." Tae-young pointed to spots where the ground looked disturbed. "Between them is safe passage. Single file, following this route." "How do you know this?" Vorn demanded. "I see patterns in systems, machines, circuits, traps. They all follow logic. These mines were placed by someone who thinks in grids." Tae-young traced a path through the air with his claw. "We can move through safely if we follow this route." Captain Vorn studied the small cub. Every instinct told him not to trust the defective one, but they needed to advance, and they were losing time. Tae-young moved forward carefully, stepping exactly where he had indicated. He could feel every eye on him, expecting him to fail, to explode, but he trusted his observations. He trusted what Hyun-woo had taught him about patterns and logic. He made it through. Then, he guided the others, one by one, through the safe path. Even Karn, limping and angry, had to follow Tae-young's directions. When they all reached the other side, Captain Vorn looked at Tae-young with new eyes. "Continue scanning for traps," Vorn ordered. They moved deeper into the jungle. Every time they encountered obstacles, Tae-young spotted them first. He identified tripwires, pressure plates, and hidden explosives. He noticed patterns in the rebel tactics and predicted where they would strike next. When they reached a rebel camp, Vorn prepared to order an assault. But Tae-young had noticed something else. "Sir, there are wounded inside. Colonists who are not fighting." "Children, irrelevant," Vorn said coldly. "We eliminate all resistance." Tae-young thought of Hyun-woo, of what the human had taught him about the value of life. He thought about being called defective and marked for death. He took a risk. "If we kill everyone, more will rebel," Tae-young said carefully. But if we show mercy to those who do not fight, we show the Empire's strength. We show we only punish those who raise weapons against us. Captain Vorn stared at him. This was not Vryn thinking. This was something else. But before he could respond, a human voice called out from the camp. "I want to negotiate." A man emerged with his hands raised. He wore the simple clothes of a colonist but carried himself like a soldier. His eyes found Tae-young and widened slightly at seeing a Vryn cub. "I am Commander Dae-sung," the man said in the Vryn language, though his accent was thick. "I lead the resistance cell here. We have wounded and civilians. Let them evacuate, and I will tell you where the remaining traps are located. You can save your soldiers, and we can save innocent lives. We do not negotiate with rebels," Captain Vorn growled. "But you are not opposed to tactics that save Vryn lives," Dae-sung said, his eyes moving to Tae-young again. "Your cub understands this. He has been saving your warriors all day by spotting traps. Let me help you save more." Dae, Tae-young spoke up again. "It is logical, sir. We lose nothing by allowing non-combatants to leave. We gain intelligence about trap locations. We complete our mission with fewer casualties." Captain Vorn was silent for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. "You have 1 hour to evacuate non-combatants. Then we advance." The evacuation was tense. Frightened colonists emerged from hiding. Many wounded, all terrified. They moved past the Vryn warriors, expecting to be killed at any moment. But Vorn kept his word. Commander Dae-sung approached Tae-young as his people filed past. "You think like a human," he said quietly. "Like someone who values life over glory." "I was taught by a human," Tae-young replied. "Hyun-woo," Dae-sung said. And Tae-young's eyes widened. "We hear things. Even here, we hear about the human engineer who saved a Vryn cub from culling. Tell him that humans are proud of him. Tell him he represents the best of what we are." Then Dae-sung provided the trap locations as promised and disappeared into the jungle with his people. The Vryn completed their mission with minimal casualties. The rebels who continued fighting were defeated, but many lives were saved that day. When they returned to the ship, General Krell was waiting in the deployment bay. His face was unreadable as he reviewed the mission reports. Tae-young stood with the other cubs, exhausted and terrified. He had survived, but he did not know if what he did would be considered success or treason. "Cub Tae-young," Krell's voice boomed. "Step forward." Tae-young obeyed, his legs shaking. Krell looked down at him with those red eyes. "You saved 17 Vryn warriors today by identifying traps. You negotiated with rebels and gained tactical intelligence. You completed the mission objective with the lowest casualty rate of any cub group." Krell paused. "This is not the Vryn way. This is not how warriors fight." Tae-young waited for the death sentence. "But it was effective," Krell continued. "Captain Vorn reports that your methods saved lives and resources. In war, results matter." The general's expression remained hard. "Axis, you are still weak. You are still defective. But today, you were useful." It was not praise, but coming from General Krell, it was as close to approval as anyone could expect. Tae-young was dismissed. He found Hyun-woo waiting outside the deployment bay. The human had been there for hours, unable to work, terrified for Tae-young's safety. When he saw the cub, alive and unharmed, Hyun-woo dropped to his knees and pulled Tae-young into a tight embrace. "You're alive," Hyun-woo breathed. "Thank God. You're alive." Tae-young hugged him back, something he had learned from humans. "I survived. I did what you taught me. I thought. I observed. I adapted. You did more than survive," Hyun-woo said, pulling back to look at him. Commander Dae-sung sent a message through the communication channels. Before he disappeared, "He told me what you did. You saved lives, Tae-young, both Vryn and human. That takes courage." "It was logical," Tae-young said, but he felt pride warming his chest. He had proven something important today. He had proven that strength came in many forms. That night, as they sat together in their quarters, Tae-young asked another question. Hyun-woo, do you think I can change the Vrin? Make them see that there are different ways to be strong? Hyun-woo looked at the small cub who had survived against all odds, who had saved lives instead of just taking them, who had shown mercy in a culture built on brutality. I think you already started, he said. The news of Tae-young's success spread through the warship like fire. Some Vrin praised his effectiveness. Others were disturbed by his methods. But everyone was talking about the defective cub who had survived his first battle and saved 17 warriors in the process. Not everyone was happy about this. High Arbiter Kel arrived on the ship 2 weeks later. He was a political officer from the Vrin High Command, sent to investigate what the Empire called concerning reports of ideological contamination. He was tall even for a Vrin, with scales so dark they were almost black. His eyes were cold and calculating. Hyun-woo first learned of Kel's arrival when Captain Vorn came to his engineering station with an unusual expression on his face. It almost looked like concern. The High Arbiter is here to investigate you and the cub, Vorn said quietly. He believes humans are corrupting Vrin youth with weakness. He has the authority to execute both of you if he finds evidence of treason. Tae-young saved Vrin lives, Hyun-woo protested. How is that treason? He used mercy. He negotiated with rebels. He valued enemy lives. Vorn's voice was flat. These are not Vrin values. Kel sees this as evidence that you are undermining the Empire's military doctrine. That evening, High Arbiter Kel summoned both Hyun-woo and Tae-young to the command chamber. General Krell was there too, standing to the side, with an unreadable expression. Other officers and several cubs, including Karn, filled the room as witnesses. Kel looked down at Tae-young with disgust. I have reviewed your file, cub. You should have been culled months ago. Your continued existence is an insult to Vrin genetics. The fact that you survived combat does not change what you are. Defective. Tae-young said nothing, but Hyun-woo felt anger rising in his chest. And you, human? Kel turned his attention to Hyun-woo. You have corrupted this cub with your species' weak ideologies. Mercy, compassion, negotiation. These concepts weaken warriors. They make the Empire vulnerable. Those concepts saved 17 Vrin warriors, Hyun-woo said firmly. Those warriors are alive because Tae-young thought differently. Thinking differently is not a virtue, Kel replied coldly. Conformity creates strength. Unity creates power. You have taught this cub to be an individual, to question tradition. This is poisonous. Kel walked to the center of the room. I have consulted with the High Command. We have decided that this experiment must end. To prove definitively whether the humans' methods produce worthy warriors or dangerous aberrations, we will conduct a trial by combat. Hyun-woo's blood ran cold. He knew what was coming. Cub Tae-young will face Cub Karn in single combat. No weapons. No technology. Just claws and strength, as Vrin have always fought. Kel's smile was cruel. If Tae-young wins using honorable Vrin combat techniques, he will be allowed to live. If he wins using tricks and technology, both he and the human will be executed for corrupting Vrin culture. If he loses, the human alone will be executed for failing to properly train a warrior. It was impossible. Karn was twice Tae-young's size, faster, stronger, trained in combat since birth. Tae-young had spent his time learning engineering, not fighting. There was no way to win. This is not justice, Hyun-woo said. This is murder. This is the Vrin way, Kel replied. The strong survive. The weak perish. Your human sentimentality has blinded you to this truth. I accept. Tae-young's voice cut through the tension. The small cub stepped forward. I will fight Karn. But not for the High Arbiter. Not to prove Vrin's strength. He looked at Hyun-woo. I fight to prove that the one who saved me was right to do so. that every life has value, that different kinds of strength can coexist. Kel laughed. Noble words from a defective creature. The combat will take place tomorrow in the training hall. All crew will attend to witness the outcome of human corruption. That night, Hyun-woo tried everything to find a way out. He contacted Ji-hae, who had no solutions. He studied Vrin law, looking for loopholes. He even considered trying to escape, but there was nowhere to run on a warship in deep space. Tae-young sat calmly in their quarters, reading through technical manuals as if tomorrow was just another day. "You should run," Hyun-woo said desperately. "Hide somewhere on the ship. We'll figure something out." "There is nowhere to hide," Tae-young replied. "And if I run, you die. I will not let that happen." "Tae-young, you can't win this fight," Hyun-woo said, his voice breaking. "Karn will kill you in seconds." "Perhaps," Tae-young said. He looked up at Hyun-woo with calm eyes. "But you taught me that winning is not always about being the strongest. Sometimes, it is about being the bravest, about standing up for what you believe, even when you know you might lose." "I didn't save you just to watch you die," Hyun-woo said. "You saved me so I could live," Tae-young corrected. "And I have lived. These months with you, learning and growing, they have been more life than I would have had in the culling chamber. Whatever happens tomorrow, you gave me that gift." Hyun-woo pulled the cub into an embrace, and they stayed like that for a long time, neither speaking, both knowing that tomorrow might be their last day together. The training hall was packed the next morning. Every Vrin on the ship had come to witness the combat. They formed a circle, leaving the center clear. High Arbiter Kel stood at one side with General Krell. The human crew members, including Ji-hae, were forced to attend. They looked terrified. Karn entered the circle first. He was in his prime, his green scales gleaming, his muscles rippling with power. He looked at Tae-young with contempt and certainty. This would be easy. Tae-young entered from the other side. He looked so small compared to Karn, his gray scales dull, his frame thin. But he walked with his head held high, and there was no fear in his eyes. "Begin," High Arbiter Kel commanded. Karn charged immediately, intending to end the fight quickly. His claws were extended, aimed at Tae-young's throat. It was a killing strike, meant to show dominance and superiority. Tae-young moved, not to attack, but to dodge. He was not strong, but months of proper nutrition and supplements from Ji-hae had made him quicker than before. He slipped aside, and Karn's claws cut through empty air. Karn snarled and spun, slashing again. Tae-young ducked, rolled, dodged. He was not fighting back, just surviving, making Karn work for every strike. "Fight, coward," Karn roared. "Stand and face me." But Tae-young kept moving, kept dodging. He was using his smaller size as an advantage, staying mobile, making the larger cub expend energy. Hyun-woo recognized the strategy. Tae-young could not win through strength, so he was trying to outlast Karn through endurance and intelligence. The crowd began to murmur. This was not how Vrin fought. Where was the direct confrontation? Where was the honor in running? Karn was getting frustrated. His strikes became wilder, more aggressive. He was using more energy with each missed attack. Sweat began to show on his scales. Tae-young, meanwhile, was breathing hard, but still moving, still thinking, still calculating. "This is shameful," Kel announced. "The defective cub refuses to fight with honor." But Captain Vorn stepped forward. The rules stated no weapons, no technology. They did not forbid defensive tactics. "The cub is following the parameters of the challenge." Kel glared at him but said nothing. The combat continued. Minutes passed. Karn was slowing down, his attacks becoming sluggish. Tae-young had taken several hits, his scales cracked and bleeding, but he was still standing, still moving, still refusing to give up. Then Karn made a mistake. Exhausted and angry, he put all his strength into one massive overhead strike. Tae-young waited until the last possible moment, then rolled aside. Karn's claws hit the metal floor with tremendous force, and one of his claws broke with an audible crack. Karn screamed in pain, clutching his damaged hand. He was vulnerable, open to attack. This was the moment when a traditional Vryn warrior would strike the killing blow. Tae-young did not strike. Instead, he stepped back and waited for Karn to recover. The crowd gasped. Even High Arbiter Kel looked shocked. "Fight!" Karn screamed through his pain. "Finish it." "No," Tae-young said. "We do not need to kill each other to prove strength." Karn stared at him, confused and angry. Then, he charged again. Despite his injury, despite his exhaustion, pride and rage drove him forward. Tae-young met the charge, but not with violence. He moved inside Karn's guard and used the larger cub's momentum against him. A defensive technique Hyun-woo had shown him. Karn tumbled past Tae-young and crashed to the ground, completely spent. He tried to rise but collapsed. His body had nothing left. He had been defeated not by superior strength but by exhaustion, by fighting an opponent who refused to engage on his terms. Tae-young stood over Karn's collapsed form. He could kill Karn now. That was what was expected. That was the Vryn way. The victor takes the life of the defeated. Instead, Tae-young extended his claw to help Karn stand. The gesture was so shocking that the entire room went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. "You fought with honor," Tae-young said to Karn. Karn stared at the offered claw with disbelief. General Krell stepped forward before High Arbiter Kel could speak. His voice boomed through the hall. "Victory goes to Cub Tae-young. He defeated his opponent and showed mercy. The mark of a true leader, not just a killer. This cub has proven that strength comes in many forms. He has proven his worth." The words were radical coming from General Krell, the most brutal warrior on the ship. They represented a fundamental challenge to Vryn tradition. High Arbiter Kel's face twisted with rage. "This is treason. Both the human and the general are corrupting our youth. I order their immediate arrest." "You order nothing here," a new voice said. A female Vryn warrior stepped forward from the crowd. Her name was Sora, a veteran who had served under Krell for years. Behind her, more warriors stepped forward, forming a line between Kel and the others. "We have watched this cub," Sora said. "We have seen him save lives, solve problems, and survive against impossible odds. We have seen him show honor to an enemy. These are leadership qualities." Her voice cracked slightly. "I lost my own cub to the culling years ago. I obeyed because I thought it was right. But this human showed us another way. Under detent, Kublaman a better way." More Vryn stepped forward, joining the line. Not all of them, but enough. A division was forming right there in the training hall. High Arbiter Kel looked around and realized he was outnumbered. "The High Command will hear of this," he snarled. "This ship will be purged. All of you will be executed as traitors." "Then let them come," General Krell said. "I grow tired of culling our young for being different. I grow tired of killing potential allies. Perhaps it is time the Vryn Empire changed." The warship was fracturing, divided between those who clung to the old brutal ways and those who had seen something new and powerful in the bond between a human and a cub. Hyun-woo stood beside Tae-young, both of them at the center of a revolution they never intended to start. But sometimes, he thought, the most powerful revolutions begin with a single act of kindness. The warship was no longer united. Vryn who supported the old ways gathered in one section, led by High Arbiter Kel. Those who questioned tradition stayed in another, protected by General Krell and his loyal warriors. Hyun-woo, Tae-young, and the other humans were caught in the middle of a civil war that neither side wanted to fully escalate. For 3 days, the ship sat in tense standoff. Kel had seized control of the communication systems and sent messages to the Vryn High Command. demanding immediate military support to crush the rebellion. Krell had locked down the ship's weapons and engine controls, preventing anyone from leaving or attacking. It was a stalemate that could not last. Ji-Hye found Hyun-woo in the engineering bay, where he was trying to keep critical systems running despite the chaos. Tae-young was with him, as always, helping monitor power distribution. "Human ships are coming," Ji-Hye said quietly. "I intercepted the communication. Admiral Min-sok is leading a fleet here. They know about the situation." Hyun-woo felt his heart race. "Are they coming to rescue us? Or to fight?" "I don't know," Ji-Hye admitted. "But the Vrin High Command is also sending ships. If both fleets arrive at the same time, this becomes a war zone." Tae-young looked up from his console. "We must stop this. If humans and Vrin fight here, everyone loses. Both sides will blame each other. And any chance for peace disappears." He was right. They had started something new here, a possibility of cooperation between species. But if that possibility ended in bloodshed, it would set back human-Vrin relations for generations. Captain Vorn entered the bay, his expression grim. "The general wants to see you. All of you." They found General Krell in the command chamber with Sora and several other officers. The massive Vrin looked tired, older than Hyun-woo had ever seen him. "Both our people are sending forces," Krell said without preamble. "This ship will become a battlefield. Unless we can prove that what happened here is worth preserving." "How do we prove that?" Hyun-woo asked. "By showing results," Krell replied. He looked at Tae-young. "You have changed this ship, Cub. You have made warriors question traditions that have stood for thousands of years. Some see this as weakness. I see it as evolution." Sora stepped forward. "Many of us have lost cubs to the culling. We obeyed because we believed it made us stronger. But what if we were wrong? What if we have been throwing away potential leaders, engineers, thinkers? What if strength has always been more than just claws and teeth?" "The High Command will not accept this reasoning," Vorn said. "They will see it as heresy. They will destroy this ship to prevent these ideas from spreading." "Then we do not ask for permission," Krell said. His voice was hard but determined. "We show them a new way. We become proof that cooperation makes us stronger than tradition." A proximity alarm interrupted them. Both fleets had arrived simultaneously. The view screen showed human warships on one side, Vrin dreadnoughts on the other, with the Times Talon of Dominion Times caught between them. "All ships, this is Admiral Min-sok of the Human Defense Fleet," a voice crackled over the communication system. "We are here to retrieve our citizens held aboard the Vrin warship. Stand down and prepare for boarding." Another voice followed, cold and ancient. "This is Empress Vyra of the Vrin High Command. The vessel Times Talon of Dominion Times contains traitors who have corrupted our military doctrine. The ship will be destroyed with all aboard to prevent contamination of the Empire." Both sides were preparing to fire. In minutes, the warship would be caught in crossfire between two species that had barely survived one war and were about to start another. "Let me speak to them," Tae-young said suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the small cub. "I caused this. Let me try to fix it." "The Empress will not listen to a cub," Vorn said. "Perhaps not," Tae-young replied. "But she will listen to proof. And I am proof that change is possible." General Krell studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Do it." Tae-young stepped up to the communication console, his claws trembling slightly as he activated the broadcast. His voice, young and uncertain but growing stronger with each word, transmitted to every ship in the area. "My name is Tae-young. I am a Vrin cub. By the old laws, I should be dead. I was too small, too weak, too defective to be allowed to live. General Krell ordered my execution months ago." On the Vrin dreadnought, Empress Vyra leaned forward, in her command throne, intrigued, despite herself. But a human engineer named Hyun-woo claimed me under the right of claim. He saved my life. Not because I was useful, but because he believed every life has value. He taught me to think, to solve problems, to see patterns. He taught me that strength comes in many forms. Admiral Minseok listened from his flagship. His officers gathered around. Some of them had tears in their eyes. I went into combat. I saved 17 Vryn warriors by thinking instead of fighting. I negotiated with rebels and saved both Vryn and human lives. I survived a trial by combat against a stronger opponent by using intelligence and endurance. And when I won, I showed mercy instead of killing my defeated enemy. Tae-young paused, gathering his courage for what came next. I am proof that the old ways are not the only ways. I am proof that cooperation between humans and Vryn can create something stronger than either species alone. If you destroy this ship, you destroy that proof. You destroy the possibility of a better future for all of us. Silence filled the communication channels. Then, Empress Vyra spoke. Bring the cub and the human engineer to my ship. I will judge this matter personally. It was not the execution order everyone had feared, but it was not safety either. Admiral Minseok immediately protested. I will not allow my people to board a Vryn dreadnought. They will be killed. Then come as well, Admiral, Vyra replied. Bring guards if you wish. We will have a negotiation. As the cub suggests. Let us see if his ideas have merit, or if they are simply the delusions of a defective creature. General Krell looked at Hyun-woo. You do not have to go. I will not order you to walk into the Empress's den. Hyun-woo looked at Tae-young, who gazed back with complete trust. The cub, who had faced death so many times, was ready to face it again. Together. We go together, Hyun-woo said. The shuttle ride to the dreadnought was tense. Admiral Minseok had insisted on accompanying them, along with Ji-hae and 4 human guards. General Krell, Sora, and Captain Vorn represented the Vryn faction. High Arbiter Kell was also summoned, his face twisted with barely contained rage. Empress Vyra's throne room was massive and intimidating. The Empress herself was ancient, her scales faded to almost white, but her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She had ruled the Vryn Empire for over a century, and her reputation for ruthless pragmatism was legendary. She studied Tae-young for a long moment as they entered. The cub stood between Hyun-woo and General Krell, trying to appear brave. So this is the defective cub that has caused so much trouble, Vyra said. Her voice was surprisingly gentle. Come closer, young one. Tae-young approached the throne, his legs shaking but his head held high. Vyra leaned down, examining him closely. You are small. Your scales are weak. By all our measures, you should not exist. She tilted her head. Yet you survived combat. You saved warriors. You defeated a superior opponent. How? I learned from humans, Empress, Tae-young said. They taught me that strength is not just physical. It is mental, emotional, strategic. They taught me that preserving life can be more powerful than taking it. These are not Vryn principles, High Arbiter Kell interjected. This cub has been corrupted by inferior species ideology. He represents everything weak about alien influence on our culture. Weak? Admiral Minseok spoke up. This cub has shown more strategic thinking than most of your warriors. He saved 17 of your people with intelligence and observation. My species may be physically weaker than yours, but we have survived through adaptation and cooperation. We offer those strengths to willing partners. Empress Vyra raised a claw for silence. She looked at General Krell. You have been a loyal warrior for decades. You have conquered worlds in my name. Why do you support this change? Krell stepped forward. Because I am tired, Empress. Tired of culling cubs, who might have been brilliant engineers or strategists. Tired of fighting wars we could have won through diplomacy. Tired of losing warriors to pride when intelligence could save them. He gestured to Tae-young. This cub represents evolution. Not weakness, but adaptation. The galaxy is changing. Species that refuse to adapt become extinct. This is treason, Kel hissed. This is survival. So-ra countered. I lost my cub to the culling. I obeyed, because I believed it was right. But watching Tae-young has shown me what we lose when we only value one type of strength. We throw away potential allies, brilliant minds, different perspectives. We make ourselves weaker by demanding conformity. Empress Vyra was quiet for a long time, her ancient eyes moving from face to face. Finally, she spoke. I did not build this empire through sentiment. I built it through pragmatism and strength. But I also know that empires, which cannot adapt, eventually fall. She looked at Tae-young again. You say cooperation makes us stronger. Prove it, not with words, but with results. How? Hyunwoo asked. I propose an experiment, Vyra said. This ship, the Times Talon of Dominion *, will be renamed and restructured. It will operate as a joint human-Vrin vessel, combining both philosophies. You will have 1 standard year to prove that this cooperation produces superior results to traditional methods. She looked at Admiral Min Seok. Your people will contribute engineers, scientists, and support staff. They will work alongside Vrin warriors and commanders. Then she looked at Krell. You will step down as general and become ambassador of this project. You will report directly to me on progress and challenges. Finally, she looked at Tae-young. And you, small cub, will be trained as a symbol of this new cooperation. You will learn from both species. You will prove whether this experiment has merit, or if the High Arbiter is correct and you are simply a defective aberration. What of those who oppose this? Kel demanded. Those who wish to maintain traditional ways may transfer to other ships or relocate to colony worlds where old customs are preserved, Vyra replied. But they will not interfere with this experiment. I have spoken. Her word was final. Even Kel could not argue with the Empress's direct command, though his face showed he would not forget this. 3 months later, the ship now called Times, the Crossroads Times, looked very different. Human and Vrin crew members worked side by side in every department. The training hall taught both combat techniques and engineering skills. The mess hall served food from both Earth and Vrin homeworlds. It was not easy. Cultural differences caused conflicts. Some Vrin still looked down on humans as weak. Some humans still feared the Vrin as brutal conquerors. But they were learning from each other. Some Vrin. After State. 2000. 15. NDG. Hyunwoo continued as chief engineer, now with a mixed team of humans and Vrin. Tae-young was his constant companion and apprentice, growing stronger and more confident every day. The cub was no longer just learning from humans. He was teaching Vrin cubs that there were many paths to strength. One day, Hyunwoo found Tae-young in a small classroom with a group of young cubs, both Vrin and human children. A small Vrin cub was struggling to lift a heavy tool. Tears of frustration in her eyes. She was small like Tae-young had been, facing mockery from larger cubs. Tae-young knelt beside her, his voice gentle. You do not need to be the strongest to be valuable. Let me show you how to use leverage. Use your mind, instead of just your muscles. He demonstrated how to position the tool so that minimal strength was needed. The small cub tried it and succeeded, her face lighting up with joy. The other cubs watched with interest, learning that there was more than one way to solve a problem. Hyunwoo watched from the doorway, feeling pride swell in his chest. This was why he had saved Tae-young, not to create a warrior or prove a point, but to give one life a chance. And that one life had changed dozens of others. Tae-young looked up and saw him. The cub smiled, then returned his attention to the young ones he was teaching. He said the same words Hyunwoo had once said to him, the words that had started everything. Everyone deserves a chance. The small cub looked up at him with hope. And in her eyes, Hyun-woo saw the future. Not a future of endless war and culling, but one of cooperation and understanding. It would not be easy. There would be setbacks and struggles. But it was possible. All because one human had refused to look away when he saw injustice. All because one cub had survived to show a better way. Admiral Min Seok visited the ship that evening, touring the facilities with Empress Vira's representative. The two species leaders had agreed to expand the experiment if it showed success. Already, other ships were being prepared for joint cruise. That night, as Hyun-woo and Tae-young sat together in their quarters, now much larger and more comfortable, the cub asked one final question. "Do you think we changed the galaxy?" Hyun-woo considered it. "I think we changed one ship. We changed the lives of everyone here. We showed that something different is possible. Whether that changes the galaxy depends on what others do with that knowledge. But we started it," Tae-young said with satisfaction. "Yes," Hyun-woo agreed. "We started it." He thought back to that day months ago, when a terrified cub was being dragged to his death. He remembered stepping forward without thinking, driven only by the belief that it was wrong to kill someone for being different. That single moment of human compassion had rippled outward, touching lives and changing minds. It had sparked a revolution, small but growing. It had proven that the traits humans valued, mercy, cooperation, innovation, were not weaknesses but strengths that could reshape the galaxy. The alien general had called the cub useless. The human had called him family. And in the end, that had made all the difference. Outside the viewports, stars stretched endlessly in all directions. Somewhere out there, other species watched the human Vrin experiment with curiosity and concern. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat. But all of them saw change. And change, Hyun-woo knew, was the most powerful force in the universe. Because change meant possibility. It meant that tomorrow could be better than today. It meant that one person's choice to do the right thing, no matter how small or insignificant it seemed, could echo across the stars. Tae-young fell asleep that night with his head resting against Hyun-woo's shoulder, safe and content. The humans sat awake a little longer, watching the stars and thinking about the future. They had a year to prove the experiment worked, but Hyun-woo was not worried. They had already proven the most important thing: that different species, different strengths, different ways of thinking could not just coexist, but thrive together. The old Vrin way had called Tae-young defective and worthless. The new way, built on human and Vrin cooperation, had given him purpose and hope. It had given all of them hope, and hope, more than claws or weapons or ancient traditions, was what would carry them forward into whatever came next. The crossroads lay ahead. The path was unclear, but for the first time since the war began, both humans and Vrin were walking it together, and that was worth everything.